Welcome to Resilient Burlington, where community leaders share their visions for Vermont. I'm Orion Breen, and with me today is Tom Longstreth, Director of ReSOURCE. How you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
What would you like to get the word out about?
You know, a lot of people know about ReSOURCE somewhat generally as a thrift store, a place to get fun, treasures. A lot more people seem to know us by our old name, Recycle North. And so one is I hope people can update their name in their memory banks to ReSOURCE, a nonprofit community enterprise, or ReSOURCE for short. But also, I think most importantly, I'd love to explain and communicate what ReSOURCE does for the community here in Vermont at 4 different locations in terms of creating more opportunity and reducing waste. And it's really the combination of the environmental mission, the job training, and the poverty relief, and the interplay between those 3 things that makes ReSOURCE unique, and I think has helped us be successful and achieve such great outcomes for the community.
Yeah, can you dive in a little more into that? What are people's common perception of you, and what do they typically not understand about the work that you do?
So the job training programs happen behind the scenes, really. You know, what the public face is this thrift store. People can drop off things they don't need anymore. They can, find building materials, major appliances, computers, all sorts of things. And so I think people get the stuff side of what we do. What's hidden is how we're helping people. And we help in 2 ways. The poverty relief, one is we're open to the public, but we provide vouchers to over 30 different nonprofit agencies. And those agencies give those vouchers to their clients. And so, COTS or Spectrum, they are able to support their clients with purchases that they wouldn't otherwise be able to afford. And so someone shows up at ReSOURCE, they shop, find what they want, they bring it up to the front. The only difference is instead of pulling out a credit card or a cash, they're pulling out a ReSOURCE voucher and using that to pay for the item. So it's a very, we set that program up in 1998 as a deliberately simple, easy, and I think respectful way of getting help to someone who needs it. They need a table. They can't afford a table. They need pots and pans and dishware so they can cook at home for a family and save money because they've just been homeless and they finally found an unfurnished apartment. But there's all these costs that go into furnishing in a house, and what we're doing is really helping them lower those costs so that they can just feed their family, provide for essentials, and we can give them a lot of the essential goods, building materials that they need to repair their homes, to live in their homes in a respectful way. So that's sort of the poverty relief. Many of our customers are also, they don't use a voucher, but they depend on ReSOURCE just because we've got good value, and so they know that they can come to ReSOURCE and get things a lot cheaper than if they had to go to a store. So anyway, that's a poverty relief. The other, and this is actually also poverty relief, is job training, workforce development, because one of the best ways to help someone out of poverty is to give them valuable skills and place them into employment that leads to good income and more skills and the rest. So ReSOURCE has about 300 trainees a year who go through one of our different training programs. We have sort of 2 broad categories of training. One is work experience, and the other is workforce development. And the expectations of what the next step is are really the distinguishing element. Work experience trainees are for individuals who really lack much work experience at all, haven't had a lot of job history, lack some important skills that employers need and expect. Whereas the workforce development trainees generally have higher skills. What they need is sort of just that additional skill level that will allow them to go directly into employment. Whereas the work experience trainees, graduation from our training program may not directly lead to employment, but it's a step along a process. It's one rung in that ladder. They may finish that work experience training program and then go back to school. Many of the trainees we work with are school-age youth, and so they are working with resource as part of that high school experience. We also have workforce development, say, for example, a youth build training program that works with high school dropouts. They come to resource to get their high school degree. And we deliver that through one of the adult ed providers and the local high schools through the Vermont High School Completion Program, or another educational credentialing pathway. We're actually currently using a Penn Foster online credentialing to support in addition to some of the normal high school completion program pathway. But in addition to that educational component, we are also providing job skills. And so for the youth build trainees, we're doing construction training. They get an NCC-ER certification. We have other apprentice-style training programs that may teach appliance repair. So we're teaching men and women to be appliance technicians so that they can, work for themselves, hang up a shingle and be that person who comes out to your house to fix your appliances when they break. And many larger appliances, those are hard jobs to outsource. As the technology continues to get smarter and better, you still need technicians who understand it and can fix it when it doesn't work. And so there's jobs out there for technicians. So I think that's overall the universe of resource is workforce development, either starting entry level to get someone basic skills, or more advanced, which delivers a credential of mastery that employers need and want, that helps people get into jobs that are unfilled. And that, employers in many areas, even with the COVID crisis, there are many employers who really are desperate for skilled workers. I mean, construction industry is a good example. It's a aging workforce. I think the last time I checked, the average age of a skilled tradesperson was, 62, 63 years old. It varies by professions, but some of the plumbers and electricians, those average ages are quite advanced. So there's a real opportunity for a young person who's willing to work hard, who able to learn on their feet, learn by doing. That creates real good opportunities for folks. And, not enough young people understand that you don't need a college degree to make good money in construction. You just need a willingness to work hard and continue to learn, because there's a huge universe of skills, and the trades keep changing with the modern technology, energy efficiency, changing building codes, changing ways of saving the planet really through our homes, which consume a lot of energy. And we can really adapt by staying current and knowing how to build homes better. So that's the type of trainee that we're really trying to help into the industry.
How can people get involved?
A lot of our trainees get involved by referrals from outside agencies. The Vermont Department of Labor will refer trainees to us. Department of Children and Families may refer trainees who are on Reach Up, who need to do some sort of work or community service or training to continue benefits. High schools will refer students to us. So a lot of the trainees who come to us are coming through a referral with a partner agency. But if there's an individual who's looking for that next step and doesn't know what to do, we'd be delighted to talk with them and try to explore what their interests, what their skills are, and see if there's not a training program that's a good fit. I'll give you an example. The need for construction workers is so intense that a couple of years ago we launched a pilot, but now it's become a full-fledged program. We run 4 to 6 cycles a year. We're trying to grow it to 6, but we're currently doing 4 a year. We call it Construction 101. It's a 6-week training program where we actually pay a stipend, and we get people placed into jobs. And in fact, employers are paying us some of the costs of the program. Employers are covering because they really need workers. They essentially pay us for every graduate they hire. And so it gives us an incentive to really be prepared to get trainees the skills that these employers need. And if we do that, we get paid for the training. If we don't, we don't. So it's sort of there's a good, our success is linked to the trainee's success, and we are really in that trainee's corner in terms of helping them achieve employment. And we're also trying to represent and work with the employers to help the employers, because really we need the employer and we need the employee, and we need to figure out what those skills are that employer needs and try to match them up with the right person. We've had great success, good track record of moving people from either out of work or working a dead-end job, low pay, into a much higher level pay through the various training programs we offer.
How can people volunteer or support ReSOURCE?
I mean, we absolutely depend on volunteers to mentor students, to donate goods, donate household goods. I mean, it's really amazing the support we get from the community. In some ways, they're helping themselves. They're keeping things out of the landfill. They've got a couch they don't need anymore, and they donate it to ReSOURCE. People load up their trucks or they call us. We come do a pickup. Right now, because of the COVID crisis, we are mostly doing just curbside pickups. But as long as someone can get something into the garage or get it curbside, we will come pick it up for free. There's a few exceptions. We don't take everything, but things, especially things that are needed by low-income families, we will come pick up with our trucks. So we have sites in Barre, Burlington, Williston, and Hyde Park. So we've got a good portion of the state covered. We really do appreciate the support we get from the public in terms of donating stuff that they don't need anymore that we can use to relieve poverty. Things that have been really helpful in the past is neighbors sometimes pull together and maybe they each only have a small amount of good quality reusable stuff, but they know that it's important for us to keep costs down. They will get 6 different neighbors and we can come to one spot and fill up a truck and leave with a whole truckload of valuable items that will support our program. So that's a good example. We have people who take ownership of different parts of our operations. For example, we've got a volunteer who comes in and manages our records. He loves vinyl and knows a lot about it and organizes it. We've got another volunteer who manages the book section. And these are people who understand that a lot of these individual categories can get messy. It's an overwhelming amount of stuff coming through the door, and they love the product. And so they're happy to give some of their time to organizing it. We have volunteers who do small appliance repair, or they are interested in stereo equipment, and so they tweak and test the stereo and other equipment. We used to have a training program in electronics back when I first started in 1996, and the demand for electronics technicians was very strong. And we actually were teaching people military grade soldering and desoldering skills, and there was good employment for those. But a lot of those jobs disappeared. And they just, you don't see those stereo TV repairmen listed anymore in the yellow pages. People don't even use yellow pages now. But so we try to stay current and need to adapt. And electronics is one way. We can't support 3 staff doing repairs anymore. The value of used equipment has gone down. So we do actually, in order to reuse some of these things, we depend on volunteers to support us. Even though our electronics department has shrunk, our computer department has grown. And there's a real need for people who know how to run computers, refurbish them, swap out hard drives, things like that. So we have a very active computer repair and refurbishment program. In fact, we're a Microsoft authorized refurbisher. So we are able to sell fully licensed computers that have Microsoft operating systems and Microsoft Word Office Suite loaded on them as part of the agreement we have with Microsoft. Anyway, so those are a few ways that people can support ReSOURCE. We also depend, funding for the program comes from sales of goods. I mean, that's the biggest thing. About 60% of our revenue is from our own social enterprises, the reuse sales, but also services like appliance repair, computer repair, building affordable housing. So we partner with Habitat for Humanity or Champlain Housing Trust, Barry Housing Authority, Winooski Housing Authority. So we don't want to be the developer. There's great developers in the state. That's not our niche. What we want to do is do the construction because we're trying to teach people to be good carpenters and gain those skills. And we want to do it by doing important work that's needed in the community. So we do weatherization work for Champlain Valley Office of Economic Opportunity. So they're the contractor. They manage a lot of the state contracts. What we do is we just do some of the work. And so it's been a good relationship. And I think that's another thing it's good for people to understand is it's sort of baked into ReSOURCE's DNA that we are a collaborator and a strong partner for a lot of other nonprofit agencies. We always, before we do something directly ourselves, we want to ask, is someone else already doing this? And is there some way we can support what they're doing or expand what they're doing through some of our own activities? And that's where the construction partnerships and the weatherization work has come in. And we've had really good results there.
Do you have any success stories in the Burlington area that you can share?
About a year ago, we had two locations in Burlington. Folks may remember. For a long time we were on Pine Street, and then we had a building material store on one side of the street, and then a house of goods store on the other. We'd been looking for better space because it didn't make a whole lot of sense to have two stores serving one small area in the south end of Burlington. So we just couldn't find the right home, and we finally found it out in Wilson. Actually bought this building. We closed on this building in January. While we were trying to build funds and do a capital campaign to buy the building, we were renting, but we'd moved in here. There was some problem with the heat system. I can't remember what the nature of the problem was, but we call up the landlord at that point and say, hey, this isn't working. He said, oh, no problem, I'll send someone out. The person who shows up, I recognize and start talking to him. Turns out this was a trainee who had graduated from our youth build program, or at least I recognized as being in our youth build program. And so I started asking him a few questions about, I thought I recognized you. What have you been doing? Working for the landlord for the last several years, who's Omega, big electrical contractor and also landlord. Has a lot of properties and does facility management. And he starts telling me about how the program has saved his life, how he had drug and alcohol addictions, how he overcame those and is supporting his family, has a good job. Every year he keeps getting big raises and bump ups in pay, and that the company is invested in his future by sending him off to trainings. There's all these great things I just love to hear, right? So the trainee coffee goes, and I call up the youth build program director, Andrew Jope, and say, Andrew, I tell you, I saw this trainee, all these great things. And Andrew says, oh yeah, boy, he made it about halfway through the program and quit. And, I'd assumed that this was one of our success stories, but this in fact was one of the people we assumed we couldn't help. We got him 4 months into the program, but he didn't graduate. He didn't get his certifications, but it became clear that part of his success was actually being sort of kicked out of our program because he wasn't cutting it. And that sort of caused some things to click. And so he was able to take some of the stuff he learned in the 4 months with us, and he turned his life around. But it's interesting because in our numbers, we count, that's one of the failures. We chalk it up to a failure, but it's a good story because it's true, but it also shows that sometimes even the people who we think didn't make it, didn't succeed, actually they really learned something in the program that they were able to use to find success. And that's what we're all about. That's what fulfills me. That's why I've been doing this job for 24 years plus or something. And, despite the financial challenges and other challenges that always are surprises, COVID, it's never boring. And, but that's what keeps me going.
Yeah, that's a great story. I mean, I've worked in the nonprofits in the past, and you have all these numbers you're trying to track, but the numbers are more than numbers. They're people, and you can't measure all the way that you can have an impact on someone.
Yeah. I think that's, we are teaching concrete skills to trainees, but we're also teaching leadership. We're teaching how to be, stick-to-itiveness. How do you stick with a job and communicate and ultimately be successful? And I think one of the things that helps is that our trainees feel, often for the very first time, they feel that they are really making a difference, because they're not just here to help themselves. Through their work at ReSOURCE, they are contributing to others. So our youth build trainees, they're building affordable housing. Our appliance trainees, they fix a stove. That stove then given away to a homeless family who's able to cook for the first time to feed their family. That makes them feel a lot of pride. Other trainees are learning skills by working within our social enterprises and helping us keep things out of landfill and deliver needed stuff to low-income people. So they feel a lot of satisfaction and pride in what they're accomplishing. We have trainees who are blind and visually impaired, who normally would be in a residential program in the summer doing important work for the community and learning how to be productive despite their blindness. And this summer is a little different because we're not able to run a residential program, but we've adapted the program and are really running a virtual program for 5 times as many students. Because it's virtual, there was sort of no cap on the number who we could enroll, and we've had trainees enroll from all over the country. So that's an exciting way to provide not the same type of training, but a different one that I think is going to be useful. And I hope in the future, when the COVID goes away, we get a vaccine or whatever, everyone starts using their masks properly. We will get trainees back for the residential hands-on learning, because really it's that hands-on learning that is very important, especially if you're blind and visually impaired and you've never been forced to do certain things for yourself. And that's what we're forcing them to do. We're helping them to do.
Yeah, I was going to ask how the pandemic has affected your operations as well as people that you serve. And it's great to see you found some ways to adapt.
I mean, I certainly have less hair than I did, 3 months ago. You and I share something in common there. We are figuring it out every day. Every week is different, and the level of uncertainty is challenging. One of the things that late March, ReSOURCE had to close to the public. We were exempt from the stay-at-home order, and we really actually were exempt in 3 different categories. Recycling, trash handlers had an exemption. The folks who are organizations serving low-income people had an exemption. There was one other category. Also, hardware, building material stores had an exemption. So we fell into each of those, and so we continued to serve the public, but we closed our doors. Many hardware stores, we said, look, we're not going to let customers into the store, but if you call us or order online, we will get you whatever we can. It's a little more challenging with used stuff because we don't have too many things all the same type, but what was incredible is we sold more appliances this past March, April than 2019. So it was, we had at least the used refurbished appliances, there was huge demand for. And I think that was because people were home, they had to cook for themselves, they needed all these working appliances, and many of them didn't have working ones, and so they came to us to get ones. We were able to get a PPP loan, and actually just this week I submitted the forgiveness application. So that's really been a lifesaver, because with what used to be a part of our strength is that 60% of our revenue was earned from our social enterprises. When those social enterprises are shut down, revenue plummeted. We were able to keep revenues at about 20% of budget in April, despite the closure and pandemic. But losing 80% of your revenue is a huge blow. So, July we are almost back to budget, and at least so far this month. So that's good news. Knock on wood. I look out across the country at what's happening in Texas and Florida and Arizona, and I worry that could come back as a second wave to Vermont, especially if folks aren't wearing masks, doing the social distancing thing. We know that social distancing, we know that wearing masks slows the transmission. And so, all of resource staff are doing that. We are being very diligent about wiping down surfaces, making sure that our stores are safe for customers. I wish some of our customers were a bit more responsible in terms of mask wearing. Anyway, I don't want to get political, but the leadership that we're getting is lacking a little bit in terms of the role modeling that we need at this point. I think Governor Scott's doing a good job in communicating how important this is, but at the national level, we're getting confusing messages, unfortunately.
What do you see as the biggest challenges or opportunities in Vermont?
One of the biggest challenges is engaging young people and keeping them in state with good paying jobs that don't require them to spend $60,000, $70,000 a year on tuition at a four-year college. There's a lot of good local jobs and opportunities for people, and I think the resource can help provide some of the skills needed to get an entry into some of these careers. So I think that's an exciting opportunity. I think there's linking the environmental. We need creative solutions to solve the environmental problems that we face, and solving those environmental problems is going to create new enterprises, new jobs, and that's hugely exciting. We need solar installers. We need people who can weatherize homes. We need people who can build massive energy battery storage systems. There are a lot of solutions that are ready to go, and all it's going to take is a little bit of sort of government policy or government tax incentives to make these solutions just boom. And it's going to create jobs, and it's going to create opportunities for people who want to work hard, get paid well, and advance in a new industry. I mean, I now drive an electric car, and it's just the power and acceleration and the performance of these vehicles is incredible. I got an affordable one. I didn't get a Tesla, but that's this type of innovation and change that's going to come very fast because it's going to be cheaper and it's going to be better, and it's going to solve the environmental problems we face. Some kids will probably want to put the noisemakers on these electric vehicles so they make some growling noise. I understand that, but that should be there's a new market for an entrepreneur to put a noisemaker to make that electric car loud, growl, do funny things. But I think technology is going to be a savior, and I just hope that as a society and as a community of caring citizens, that we can use technology and to create a cleaner, better future for all of humanity, because the inequality and the environmental destruction that's happening right now is very depressing, and we need to fix that. So I'm Resource is really committed to these solutions, and I'm very optimistic in terms of outlook, because I know that we can solve these problems with technology we really have. We just need to put it into place and use it. And all of us need to be willing to change in small ways.
How did you get started in this work?
A lot of my professional career, I guess, has been in education or job training. So I used to work with New Hampshire Conservation Corps building trails. with youth, disadvantaged youth. And so again, it was teaching different type of skill, but I was teaching them to build trails so for recreational purposes. I then continued that work working with the Vermont Youth Conservation Corps, and then went back to school and got a master's in public policy from the Kennedy School of Government, and have been doing this job ever since '96 when I graduated from graduate school. But I think it combines some things that I am deeply passionate about. I mean, social justice and creating opportunity through education and training for people who lack certain advantages, and the environmental aspect of so it's really the three parts of the mission: the poverty relief, job training, economic and environmental stewardship are dear to my heart, and the ability to connect the three of them in these synergistic ways is really a perfect job. So, and we, it's, the job has changed in the last 24 years. When I first started in 1996, there was 8 staff, and we sat around a picnic table every Tuesday for our staff meeting. And, now we have, over 70 staff, and we've got 4 locations, and, we don't sit around the picnic table every Tuesday anymore, especially not with COVID. But so the job keeps evolving and changing, but we're able to connect and use people's skills. We just have an amazing group of staff who are so committed to their work and so committed to achieving strong outcomes. Many of our staff were once trainees in our programs. So we have about 25% of our staff were once trainees. And that feels really good that we're creating those opportunities.
Why do you live in Vermont? What makes Vermont special to you?
I like space. I grew up in New York City. So I'm comfortable in big cities, and I like the diversity and the vibrancy of cities, but I also love the recreational opportunities. I love hiking in the mountains, paddling on rivers, the chance to be outside. And so, Vermont gives that. I cross-country ski and really enjoy those opportunities to just be outside on clear, cold days on snow. Those opportunities aren't too frequent in New York City.
Who inspires you in Vermont and beyond?
My grandparents inspired me. They did a lot of civil rights work. They were both educators. But here in Vermont, they've passed away. But here in Vermont, Vermont has a lot of great leaders in the nonprofit sector, and it has innovative leaders. We've got also some great businesses. I mean, the Vermont businesses for social responsibility, and also these, tech companies that are doing innovative work in very remote, rural Vermont. You're so often surprised about these companies, and they both are doing innovative work, entrepreneurial work, but also they're doing it leading with a social conscience, providing good pay to their workers. Often it's employee-owned businesses. That's a great example for the rest of the nation.
So if people want to find out more, they can go to your website.
The website is really a great first step, resourcevt.org. And, you can schedule a pickup or request that. You can get information about what types of things we take as donations. If you want to make a charitable contribution, you can do that through our website. And you can learn about our job training programs and poverty relief. You see some outcomes, some financial information, annual reports. We have a lot of good stuff on our website. So I do encourage folks as a first step to go check it out, resourcevt.org. And but then call if you have any questions.
You're listening to Resilient Burlington. I'm your host, Orion Breen. And with us today was Tom Longstreth, Executive Director of ReSOURCE. Thank you so much for coming on.